Okay, we're live. Okay, three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another installment of Security on the In30 Network. Today, we want to talk about your favorite type of cookie. And Tom, please don't tell me it's oatmeal raisin.
No, I'm a white chocolate chip macadamia kind of guy.
Okay, good. Because my dessert, I have a rule with desserts. It cannot contain a fruit or vegetable. And I've gotten a lot of heat on this. So I don't know what type of dessert person you are, but like apple pie, that's a no go. Mint chocolate chip, well, mint is okay. It's just like oatmeal raisin. That's a definite no. I like my chocolate. I like my peanuts. I like my caramel, and I generally prefer cookies over cake.
I'm more of a peanut butter guy. If it's got peanut butter anywhere in it, it can be ice cream, it can be milkshakes, it can be a cake or cheesecake of some sort. I'm totally for it.
I guess we sort of agree. Vegetables, not so, and fruits, not so much, but
Yeah.
occasionally. It's like, I mean, I do like carrot cake, or no, like cheesecake. I love cheesecake, but you put the raspberry topping. People say you're crazy, and I go, you know what? I made a rule. I got to stick to it. But
Well, there you go.
unfortunately, these are not the cookies. So Cookie Monster needs to relax a little bit. These are not the cookies we want to talk about. We are talking about browser-based cookies. But before that, we had some follow-up. And guys and females, keep submitting the follow-up. This comes from our YouTube page, and we'll talk about it. So I'm guessing the name is Argonova. Argo Nova. Okay. I can read. So it's very long, but basically it was asking what is the effect of using a VPN in conjunction with Tor?
Right. Now, this question, there's a lot of different components to it, so let me break it down because a lot of people ask this question. You are not the first person to ask this question at all in the internet because I've done the search myself. It's more or less unhelpful, or people fall to one side or another. Let me give you the benefits and really what you're trying to decide when you're trying to decide between, okay, if I've got Tor and I have a VPN, do I start the VPN first and make the VPN tunnel and then route Tor through it? Or do I start Tor first and then connect to my VPN? And it really depends on who you trust. And this isn't a noob question. This isn't really an easy question to answer because there's a lot of different components to it. So who do you trust? When you're using Tor, it's no secret to your ISP. They can't see what you're doing, but they know you're using Tor. So if you use a VPN, your ISP knows you're making a VPN connection elsewhere. The thing is, what do you want your ISP to see? Do you want them to see a VPN connection? Or do you want them to see a Tor connection? And then beyond that, when you make that decision, do you want your VPN provider to just think, oh, they've just got traffic going through a VPN? Or do you want them to know you're routing Tor through that VPN? You know, who do you trust the least? And that's what you have to make your decision based on. So, for instance, if you live in some totalitarian country that attacks people for using Tor, or you might be arrested for using Tor, but VPNs are okay because businesses use those. Um, you would go for a VPN first because that's what your ISP can see, that's what the government would see, and then route Tor through it. On the other hand, if you don't want your VPN provider to know what you're doing with your traffic, to know what kind of websites you're going on, because, as you pointed out, Argonova, VPN providers lie. I mean, they do. In certain countries where they operate, they have to maintain logs. That's part of the law in the land. And to do business in that country, they have to keep logs, and they have to provide them to the government upon warrant or secret FISA letter or whatever, under subpoena, you name it. So, do you want to hide your traffic from, your VPN provider? In that case, you want to start up the VPN and then start up Tor, so your VPN provider can see that you're using Tor, but they can't see your traffic. it's up to you at what you want to do, who you really want to trust, what kind of situation you're in. For me, I don't really trust my ISP, but I do trust my VPN provider. So if I was going to do anything, I think personally, and I don't have a need to do this, but if I were going to choose one of these setups, I would launch Tor first, and then configure my VPN connection to use the Tor connection and connect through that. So that way I've got my Tor tunnel, and I'm putting my VPN tunnel inside of that. Now, keep in mind, when you go through a VPN, you're more or less getting rid of your anonymity to the VPN provider. To certain websites, to your browsing habits, you are anonymous until you log into Facebook and get some tracking cookies, which we'll talk about here in a bit. But your ISP doesn't know what you're doing when you're routed through Tor. And when you put your VPN connection through it, they don't know that you're inside of Tor. They could probably guess depending on the endpoint you come out of. But you're also handing them your traffic logs. And depending on what you're doing, that may be a bad thing. So where do you place your trust? If you want to do completely anonymous, if you don't log into things, if you don't get, if you don't get a bunch of tracking cookies, then just straight up Tor works great. If you can't access Tor in your country, don't rely on a VPN. The Tor project has this concept called bridges, which allows you to get out to the Tor network through traffic that doesn't look exactly like Tor, through traffic that's obfuscated and really hidden decently well. It takes some looking to figure out that you're routing Tor traffic. But it all comes down to that. And I thought there was another question here, so let me scan through this real quick.
I mean, while you're looking, but I mean, is there reason to do both? I mean, obviously, if you want to be belt and suspenders and really make sure you're anonymous and private and everything else, I mean, your business is going to tell you use a VPN and probably block Tor. If you're at home, you probably don't want to pay for a VPN and Tor is free. I feel like you're almost, in a weird way, it's like it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, unless you want to be so secure that you need to do both.
Right. If you're really trying to protect your traffic from an ISP, doing 2 tunnels, that's insanely secure. Now, one well-configured tunnel, OpenVPN, strong keys, strong passphrases, or certificates, you're really well protected. Tor, you're going to be really well protected. One thing that he asks is, if a VPN service is keeping logs, and some do, because some of them lie, could your VPN, they can't see your traffic, which you're entirely correct. If you use a VPN that use Tor inside of it, they can't see your traffic. But they can see you're using Tor. Could they put a timestamp to it and potentially use traffic analysis on the Tor exit nodes to pinpoint who you are if they're in conjunction with your ISP's logs? So what the FBI does, and what they have done before in certain cases, is they look at the big traffic picture. They've got some taps on your ISP. They've got taps on a couple Tor endpoints because, let's not kid ourselves, the FBI runs Tor exit nodes. If they've got a tap on your ISP and a tap on the exit node, and they say, hey, this guy sent like 8 packets at this time, and given the current latency of the Tor network through these nodes, it'll take about this long going through to get here, and oh, look, 5 packets popped out on the outside. So we sent 5, and this endpoint received 5 from this guy. So we can deduce, over, of course, a long period of time of collecting these logs, that this guy must be using this exit node for this traffic. And depending on what that is, you could be in huge legal trouble. So, yeah, it's traffic analysis and timing analysis is very, very big. It's used a lot in cases where they need to really pinpoint a user of an ISP to some traffic coming out of a Tor exit node. It is possible. It has happened before. It's not cheap and it's not easy, so you have to do something that really, really puts you on the map. But Yeah, it is possible. So that might be one reason to use a VPN. Another reason to use a VPN inside of Tor would be, let's say you're using Tor. You could pop out anywhere in the world. You don't know where your traffic's going. Let's say you're trying to watch Canadian Netflix, or you're trying to watch stuff on the BBC through the BBC's video player. Well, if you're in the States, you can't watch the BBC stuff because you're not in the UK. So you have Tor, and then you use a VPN service that routes right to the UK, and now you can stream video. Now, you have to have a really lucky connection with Tor, a fast VPN, and a really good home connection to make all that work, because Tor makes things slow. A VPN makes things slow, and bundling them together makes things really extra slow. If you're sending email, if you're reading forums, it doesn't matter all that much. If you're trying to stream a video or listen to music, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be awful for you.
But again, if you're going to try and route just the BBC's opening Olympics in London, I mean, you're basically going to choose a VPN for that and skip Tor unless you have, I don't know, whatever reason you would need to also obscure your traffic.
Right. There's a slim use case. There are use cases out there, but yeah, it would be slim, and there's not much benefit unless you're really, really trying to hide, and you really don't trust either your VPN provider or your ISP or both.
And unfortunately, in the U.S., most people do not like their ISP. And I don't know what trust we give in any of them. I don't know if there's any of them that people, other than, I guess, SonicNet, that people do trust.
I might trust Google Fiber. I mean, they're not on my list of bad ISPs. They haven't, to my knowledge, really gone out and tried to harm people. But then again, they're really young, right? Comcast has been around for a while. Time Warner's been around for a while. They've had a long time to sit and become evil, ripening like a really evil pie.
And unfortunately, I mean, the one good thing about Comcast is they may be so inept they may not know what they're doing. But you don't want to rely on this. You don't want to rely on the stupidity of others to hide your traffic. You want to do it yourself. So I mean,
and I'm going to write this up. I'm going to put it on my blog because it's a fantastic question, and it really needs a deep dive into answers. So, in case this explanation was a little too brief, in case you want something written down that you can look at and sort of analyze, I'm going to write a blog post and put this in it. So stay tuned because I'm lazy when it comes to writing blog posts.
Just like everyone else, when you can tweet in 140 characters.
Oh, yeah. I could just send out like 80 tweets about this.
Every morning you wake up and you send a new tweet.
Yeah.
And you'll get it done in 3 or 4 weeks. Anyway, so that took enough time. But cookies. So every time I run my anti-malware or anti-spyware, I get 120 tracking cookies. And it says, you should get rid of these. And then when I get rid of these, I go to all these websites and I have to log in. And that's really annoying. So what should I be worried about these cookies?
It, again, depends on your use case, depends on what you're worried about. If you're the type of person that is really concerned about your privacy, you don't want one website knowing that you went to another website, because that's just weird, man. Why do websites want to know that I'm going to this one and then that one? Well, plain and simple, advertising. A lot of websites, many websites, most websites operate for free, completely for free, and they've got advertisements. The tracking cookie came about because people wanted to see, okay, if this guy is looking at golf clubs on Amazon, and then he goes to Gillette's website and he's looking at, like, razors and stuff, and then he goes to Men's Warehouse and he's looking at ties, he's either trying to win a contest to be the most dadly person in his group of friends, or he's shopping for Father's Day presents, and then boom, when you go to that tech blog and you're researching gadgets to buy your dad on Father's Day ads are up on the side. You've got a Father's Day pop-up in your face saying, actually, Dad wants a new Camaro. And you're just like, I can't afford a new Camaro. I'm in college. And they said, well, you should buy one because we're telling you to.
So, I mean, for ads, but, okay, so, and look, you have two choices here. Do you want relevant ads or do you want any ad. And I fall on the camp of, you know what? If they're going to track me anyway, you have to accept terms of use. You have to accept the cookie from these sites, and they're all a conglomerate of other sites. You're going to see ads. I might as well get something targeted to me, hoping that it'll be relevant and I may click on it.
Right. And so a service like Blogger or Tumblr might use a cookie. Not saying they do, but they might use a cookie to track your tracks around the site if they're not using JavaScript or another type of tracking method by saying, hey, this blog, people who read this clicked on articles from this, so maybe in the suggested articles on the side, we'll link to stuff like that. And, just generally trying to make the user experience better. Now, this is more of an SEO statement than a security statement, but relevant ads, targeted advertising has been shown to be just marginally more effective, if not completely the same, as non-targeted ads. And there's a reason for that. Psychologically speaking, if I get a bunch of tech ads shown in my face and a bunch of security product ads, do you really think they're going to be effective? I've done the research. I'm in the field. I already know what's going to be good and bad, and I've got my brand loyalty already. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. So does an advertisement have any effect on me? Probably not. But, if you're trying to sell me football shoulder pads, I have no idea what to buy. Oh, this one's got some weird type of chemically made cushion from a patented process, and this one has a jetpack built in. Well, that jetpack looks pretty cool. I'll go buy that. So it's really a question of, do you want the targeted ads? Do you not? And do you really care? Some people really care. Some people don't. In most of these systems that aren't really, really evil and really poorly made, you're not, Tom Webster. You are 67987642110A. You are an anonymized piece of data. This anonymized piece of data has visited these sites and clicked on these links and spent this much time doing this thing. Certain tracking cookies can be really evil. They can see what you've clicked on, if you're logged into Facebook, maybe your real name, maybe your email address, depending on what's showing up on the page. And they could theoretically tie that back to a real person. They could theoretically take that data and sell it off to an advertiser. Do you want that to happen? Do you care if that happens? That's up to you. The fact is, tracking cookies are so hard to get rid of, because the moment you get rid of it, they just come back in droves. You can't do anything without something trying to track you on the internet. It is almost impossible to escape from tracking on the internet. Yes, there is the Do Not Track initiative. Advertisers don't have to listen to that. There's no legislation behind it. There's no real technical reason why it wouldn't be. You could run certain add-ons like Ghostery or NoScript to try to block some of these things, but then your websites might cease to function. I know there are websites out there that say, hey, look, you have to have cookies enabled. You can't just turn off cookies. That's against the rules. Unless you have cookies on, we're shutting down the site and you can't get any of this great content. That happens more than you know. Same thing with JavaScript.
But you have to remember, so again, we're saying that some of these things are evil, but for the most part, they're trying to, the website, whether it be YouTube or wherever, is just trying to fit. I mean, it could be something as they just want to know who's coming to their site. What should they target? If one of their articles went viral, they would like to know the sources so they can maybe better tune it to the traffic coming from there. They're not all out to get you. They're just, I mean, it is simple as, we'll remember your browser session to keep you logged in. It could be something as simple and as convenient as that.
It could be as nice as you went to go shopping on a site, and they decided to keep, that item in your cart after you closed out of the site, saying, hey, you may have accidentally closed a tab, you may have just looked and not wanted to buy today, but we kept this thing in your cart just in case. Now, there is the annoyance factor of if they have your email address. I've had websites email me saying, hey, you left this in your cart. Are you sure you didn't mean to buy it? No, I didn't click purchase. I really didn't mean to buy it. But not all tracking is evil. I mean, tracking is used for perfectly legitimate methods. I use tracking on many of my websites, on most of my websites, because I want to know how many people are clicking on my links. I want to know how many people are reading the things I wrote. I want to know how many downloads you have of the Great Security in 30 podcasts. I mean, we have those numbers. We know how many people download our podcast. Now, are we seeking you out and saying, Bob Johnson, did you like episode 37? I bet you loved episode 37. It was fantastic, wasn't it? No, we don't. I mean, I'm not interested in that level of detail. I think that level of detail is kind of creepy. And frankly, I don't care if Bob Johnson downloaded episode 37. I mean, if people want to interact, that's great, but they should come to me. I'm not going to go over to their house, knock on their door, and say, did you like it? Did you really like it? That's kind of weird.
I mean, we're just trying to figure out if most people are coming from a different country. If we get popular in England, they have different laws. So maybe Tom and I will cater what we talk about more to an international audience. Or if a whole slew of females start talking about it, maybe we'll bring a female in to talk about female stuff that we're just missing. Psychology of being a female versus a male, and just simple things like that. And again, we're talking about tracking cookies. We're not talking about the malicious intent. Now, like Tom said, they have ways to be malicious, and this is not a malicious intent, but DoubleClick is the largest tracking cookie network, I guess, out there. And unfortunately, they're owned by Google. But what Google does is they're basically on every website. Google will track your history across the different across the internet, and again, trying to provide you relevant content. And you have to ask yourself, do you trust Google to do this properly, or do you not trust them? And at least Tom and I have both said we trust them not to be evil, but we do know how much information, and they tell you. When we look at the episode on the dashboard about, I don't know, 2 months ago, 10 episodes ago or so, it shows where you went, you have your history, how you got there, what their information they're keeping, and if you don't want it, how to delete it.
And, you know, this is the Wild West of the internet, man. I mean, if Google decides to be evil, we can go somewhere else. You know, I've been recently, over the past couple weeks, testing out different search engines that are more privacy-focused, whether or not they actually are. It's kind of up in the air for me. I just want to see what other search engines are out there, what they're like, if I am going to run back screaming to Google, or if I can handle an alternative. Because if Google turns evil, I'm going to need some alternatives. I don't think they will anytime soon, but it's always good to be prepared. It's always good to look at alternatives. And no one's forcing you to go to Google. No one's forcing you to run DoubleClick ads on your website. Lots of people have an ad network.
I mean, we're trying to get ads on here, and the first thing the advertiser is going to say is who's listening to your show and how many people. And all we want to do is get paid, just get paid some money, so it makes us feel like it's worth it.
Right. I mean, hosting isn't free. One of the reasons I run ads on a couple of my websites is because, you know, I'm paying X amount of dollars per month for a server out in a data center somewhere to sit and chill and serve up websites because I like building websites. And I'd like to offset that cost a little bit. Now, to date, the websites I run have made me a grand total, and this is ridiculous. I'm about to just throw my finances out there to the wind, to the wilds of the internet, a grand total of about $20 over like 8 years. All right, so rolling in it here. But bigger websites need that ad revenue to function. So for instance, The Onion. The Onion makes great, original, hilarious content. They need advertisements in order to stay afloat, in order to keep servers running, because it doesn't take one measly web server like I have. It takes thousands of web servers, hundreds of web servers, hundreds of, you know, differently located around the globe data centers to keep the hilarious stories coming to you wherever you are, whenever you are on the internet. That takes money. One of the ways to get money? Advertising.
And again, but those are the tracking cookies. And we've said, okay, so let's ask this. If we're super paranoid, what can we do? I mean,
If you're super
Oh, before we do
paranoid,
that, hold on. Before we do that, my advice, and I do this, and I can show people how to do it on Chrome, and I'm sure Firefox has it. What I do is there's a setting to delete all cookies every single time. But the problem with that is it means every single website, Amazon, Google, YouTube, you have to log back in. You have to log back into that site. And if you use something like LastPass, it's not a big deal. For the sites I go to all the time and I trust, you can make what they call an exception, and it says don't delete this single cookie. Other than that, every website that I go to that's not one of my top 10 or top 20 websites, I got to type in my username and password. And the good part is LastPass stores it, so I'm not worried.
right. That's one option. There's another option called Ghostery that was specifically created to help protect you, to help hide you from tracking cookies. Really cool project. I know some people swear by it. I know some people don't really like it. I used it for a little bit. It wasn't bad. I think that they do a good job as far as this goes. I think there's a lot of room for improvement, but there's always a lot of room for improvement. Give Ghostery a shot. If you want to, opt yourself out of the JavaScript script tracking, try either ScriptNo on Chrome or NoScript on Firefox. If you're using Internet Explorer, don't use Internet Explorer. And I will warn you, not having cookies, especially not having tracking cookies, can break things. At the very least, not having cookies at all is pretty annoying, or it can be pretty annoying unless you're prepared for it. And NoScript, I guarantee you will break things. Most Google pages, especially Docs, Drive, Google+, Hangouts, all that stuff, if you turn off JavaScript, a lot of things break. The entire web is driven by JavaScript today, for better or for worse. But you can selectively allow little pieces of JavaScript once you clear them. But it's worth looking at the other side. What if you totally disengage yourself from tracking of all sorts, JavaScript and cookies, without disconnecting your net? And if you really want to be secure, if you really want to opt out of tracking, don't use rewards cards, don't use credit cards at all, cash only everything, pay your bills in person in cash, and disconnect your internet. Always. That is the foolproof way to keep yourself from tracking. Oh, and cancel your social security number and hide in a hut somewhere in the woods.
Solar panels on the roof.
Yes.
Don't use the electric company. Unfortunately,
under a tree canopy so the satellites can't see you.
And unfortunately, that means not listening to us, so we're not going to recommend it. But look, if you want to go that far, you can go that far. But again, it's these cookies. Every time you go to the website, and I think there's some EU law because I think
Yes.
British sites that say, by the way, do you accept this cookie? And I almost want to say yes, of course. And then I have to remember, I'm going to a site in the EU, and they're overly crazy with their privacy for almost the wrong reasons. But they're saying, hey, would you accept this? As if you hit no, the site's not gonna work. So you have no other choice.
Yeah, that law is absolutely ridiculous. Both in A, the way it's written is ineffective, and B, I mean, really? I know plenty of website operators that operate in the UK that have in Europe that have a European presence, have a .eu or other country domain, and they don't implement this because it's annoying to users.
So
I find it ridiculous.
Okay, well, like we said, cookies are one of those necessary evils. The only thing you can do is figure out what you need and what you don't need and how to manage them. You're not going to eradicate them, but don't go crazy just storing cookies. It's not what you want to do. Every few months, do run back to the initial question, run your anti-malware, delete the cookies. Get a fresh start. Chrome has a delete my browsing history. You may want to
Control-Shift-Delete.
Do that. Check off the stuff. Let it do its thing, and just rebuild your profile. And then every couple of months, do that. So.
And it makes the browser go so much faster. I love spring cleaning days on Chrome because I'll clear my whole profile and then let it resynchronize everything together, and it goes so much faster at the end.
So
it's kind of nuts.
So anyway, that's it for today. We're running out of time anyway. So until next week, we will see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.